It's now officially 2021, which means two things. We finally left 2020, which is good, and more importantly, it's now the year of Zelda's 35th anniversary. As I'm sure you're aware, last year was Mario's anniversary, and Nintendo went all out. We got Mario 3D All-Stars, a Mario Game & Watch, Mario 35 Battle Royale, as well as a Mario 3D World with DLC this year. I know some people didn't like 3D All-Stars because of the lack of work put into it, but I personally don't mind. Being a bit younger, I never owned an N64 or GameCube growing up, and so for me to have played these games previously, I would have had to buy a couple $100 worth of hardware and software. However, now I can simply buy these games for a console I already own. Could they have put a little bit more work into these games to make them look and control a little better? Absolutely. However, I don't think it was as bad as people say, as it allowed lots of people an opportunity to see why these games are so popular without forcing them to spend a lot of money. Hot take aside, being more of a Zelda fan than a Mario fan, his anniversary gives me some pause. Since it's now Zelda's 35th anniversary, I'm sure Nintendo is going to do something this year as well. I would like to look at a couple different options for how Zelda's anniversary would go, so without further ado, let's get into the video. First off, I'd like to take a look at a future similar to Mario's 35th anniversary. We know Mario 3D All-Stars contains Mario 64, Sunshine, and Galaxy. It would make a lot of sense for something similar to occur this year. In my humble opinion, the most likely candidates for this would be Ocarina of Time, Twilight Princess, and The Wind Waker. I would hope they would use the HD versions of these games, but with Nintendo, you can never be sure. Getting a pack with all three of these amazing games would be great, and at least Twilight Princess and Wind Waker would be really easy to port since they were designed for the Wii U, which means they wouldn't have to change the controls at all. The Ocarina of Time port would require a bit more work, especially if they used the 3D version, but I'm sure they could manage it. I don't know if it's just me who thinks this, but it doesn't seem like the Zelda team would do such a half-baked job with the games. If we look back at Mario's anniversary, we see that we're also getting Mario 3D World with DLC. In my opinion, if Zelda's 35th got something similar to that, they would probably use Skyward Sword. It would work perfectly for multiple reasons. First off, the game originally came out on the Legend of Zelda's 25th anniversary, so it'd be fitting for it to re-release on the 35th. Not only that, but it'll also be the 10th anniversary of the game itself. The game is basically entirely anniversaries. Second, it's the only 3D Zelda game that hasn't been remade yet, other than Breath of the Wild, obviously. And lastly, it has a perfect opportunity for DLC. The Zelda Encyclopedia states that Zelda's adventure down the surface was almost made playable. This would be a great addition to the game if they were to add DLC to it. Getting to play as someone else other than Link during a mainline Zelda game would be fascinating and a refreshing change of pace, and would in itself make the game worth buying even to people like me who already own the original Skyward Sword. Anyways, I know last year also had Mario 35 Battle Royale, and I'm not entirely sure if they could translate that into Zelda, but I would love to see 35 Links fighting with bombs, swords, and boomerangs. Oh, and most of the anniversary content would only be available till March 31st, 2022, by the way, because Nintendo. I'm not entirely sure why they made the Mario Stuff limited edition, but I'm sure they'll have some way to sell these games individually or something after the end date. Alright, now that we've considered a similar fate to Mario's, it's time we look at something entirely new. It seems like almost a complete certainty that we will get Twilight Princess and Wind Waker ports this year, although whether or not they will come in a bundle or as individual games, I don't know. Honestly, unless they come with a bunch of new content, those games being sold individually for $60 would probably not be worth it. Honestly, the most likely option is being sold in a bundle of the two games for $60. The second possible option is another bundle, but this time one of Ocarina of Time Majora's Mask. I could totally see Nintendo figuring out a way to turn the three versions compatible on the Switch. However, I could also see these titles added as part of a virtual console or as part of Nintendo's online service. Speaking of the online service, it was recently updated in the Switch's latest firmware update. It's not directly Zelda related, but there's a possibility they could have done this to increase the number of consoles on the online service. If they did this, there would be a bunch of Zelda games added to the service, which would decrease the odds of some older Zelda games getting remakes for the Switch. What it could do though is allow some older games that didn't originally have online to have it. One thing I've seen discussed a lot on Twitter is the possibility of Four Swords Adventures getting online co-op. Another thing that could be cool is if Grezzo is working on something for Nintendo, I could totally see them remaking the Oracle games or the Minish Cap or something. I would love to see the older Zelda games remade, or even Zelda 1 gain a Final Fantasy VII type reimagining. However, despite all this conversation, there's still one major thing we haven't talked about, Breath of the Wild 2. We know the game is in development, but since June 2019, we haven't heard a single thing about it. In my opinion, as well as the opinions of a lot of people I've talked to recently, it's likely going to be the holiday title of 2021. Considering we haven't heard anything more about the game, I can't see it coming anytime soon, as I don't think Nintendo would basically shadow drop such a major title. Unfortunately, we didn't get any news about it at the Game Awards, but I suppose that's to be expected since Nintendo will want to milk Age of Calamity for a while before they give fans something else that will make them forget about it. The game has been known in development for about a year and a half now, and since the world is already built, I doubt it will take as long to produce as the first game did. If all of these things were to happen, we could get upwards of 4 to 5 Zelda games this year, including one entirely new one. Regardless of what happens for Zelda's 35th, I have full faith that the Zelda team will do their best to make it absolutely wonderful, and that we will get a bunch of great new content. Alright, thanks so much for watching the whole video, I really enjoyed making it. I'm super excited for this year. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to like and subscribe as I really appreciate it, and if you have anything you want to add, you should comment it down below. Also be sure to follow me on Instagram and Twitter, which will both be linked below. That's all I have for you today, so until next time, I've been Trevor's Truths, and I'm out.